is called the Second Chance Matric Support Program. And that's the reason we're here today. But my role is not to make a speech. Mine is just to coordinate the program for the day. It is going to be a very short program. There are not, we don't have many items on the agenda because we understand it's breakfast, but we also understand that Gauteng has its own event today, this morning, where they will be announcing the top achievers, but also the MEC will be talking about the work that the province has done. At this point, I'm going to ask the Premier of Gauteng, Tate David Makhura, to come and make opening remarks. Thank you, Premier.
Thank you very much to our program director, the Minister of Basic Education, Honorable Angie Motshekga, the Deputy Minister of Basic Education, Honorable Anne Vasurti. The MEC for Education is not with us here because, as you know, we're going to have the announcements of the matric results in detail after the minister last night. He is busy with that process. I must acknowledge him in absentia so that it is also recorded that he is not able to be with us. The representatives of the various school governing bodies who are present, the officials from the department, including the district director, who are with us, the councillors in this local community of Ivory Park, the school principals, the teachers in our midst, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure this morning to welcome particularly the Minister and Deputy Minister to Ivory Park in our province, where this important program will be launched. And Minister, I must thank you for choosing our province to launch the Second Chance Matric Support Program. I know that this choice is very objective. It's based on objective criteria. We are in public education, no doubt, at the top of the league. You are closer. The headquarters of basic education is around the corner. It's not in Cape Town. Because we know, there's always that rivalry between Gauteng and Cape Town on everything. It's very positive rivalry. We like it. It's like Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. If you win one game, you have to work hard for the next game. To keep on top, you have to work very, very hard. Minister, I must also congratulate you for having taken our country into confidence yesterday, not just by releasing the results, but by also explaining what's happening with the system as a whole. And the maturity of our system, 21 years into our democracy, it birth pains, and where we're making progress, and what we need to do to intervene and address these problems. You were also able to account to the nation on what is the main reason or reasons behind the decline from 75% to 70%. And that's an act of leadership, Minister. You were not dodging the issues. Obviously, I think you also did express your disappointment with regard to not being where we were, but you highlighted also those areas where we are beginning to do extremely well, and what your program is as the national department to address the challenges where they are. Obviously, I must use this opportunity also to say that I am very pleased as the Premier of Gauteng Province for the fact that our province has maintained that 84% which we were last year. It's very important because given the changes we were pioneering in the system, particularly the decisive speed with which we introduced ICT in education, what the MEC for education in our province, MEC Lisufi calls it the schools of the future, classroom of the future. We introduced that, as you know, we started in grade 12. And we were changing the wheels as the car was moving. The officials will tell you, the teachers will tell you, that as we introduce at a massive scale and to change the wheels whilst the car is moving requires a great deal of skill. All drivers will tell you and all mechanics will tell you. There was a potential that every change, even if it's the most positive, could result in a decline. So that's why we are very happy that we introduced that major change, ICT in education. It is now part, Minister, it's now part of Operation Pagisa, the one that focuses on ICT. And we particularly monitored, I must report to you, we also reviewed, I'm going to say a lot today, we looked at those schools, what has happened in the schools where we introduced ICT, because as a leadership, you have to take note of every little impact that any change makes. So we're pleased that in the schools where we introduced ICT, those schools did extremely well. And that's why in the new year, we are going to continue with the rollout of ICT in education to enable learning. Today we meet here, Minister, because of a special focus on, we celebrated yesterday the learners who did extremely well yesterday. And we are continuing later in Gauteng as we announce the results. But this morning, the Minister is focusing on those learners who fell by the system. In other words, who couldn't make it. And in Gauteng is 17,000 learners. So we have 112,000 learners that registered for grade 12, and 104 of them wrote in Gauteng. And out of that 104, 17,000 did not make it. So the second chance matric support program in Gauteng, we already have 17,000 learners who couldn't make it. But it's also important, Minister, as we tell the story that in Gauteng province we had more than, out of the 104 104,000 matric candidates, we had 91,000 who passed, and 38,000 of them got bachelor passes. The story that must be told is that of all those who started grade 1 in 2003 and they wrote matric in 2015, 77% of them who started grade 1 in 2003 completed matric last year. This is a major achievement, because I listen to people, those in public discourse who are not very informed, are saying that we focus only at the end point, which is matric, and they are saying we forget about those who started grade 1 and they are lost through the system. In this province, Gauteng province of South Africa, those who started their grade 1 in 2003, 77% of them completed their matric last year. It's tremendous achievement. It's tremendous achievement. And that story has to be told, that we are not just focusing on matric, we are focusing at every level to make sure that the children who start school in our schooling system. In fact, that 77% is taking us soon to 80%. We're striving to 80% next year. All the children who start school in our system must be able to get to the end. And that's why those who don't make it, who don't pass grade 12, must still be the problem of the nation, Minister. It can't be their problem that it is their problem with their parents. They must see to finish, we are done. We have done our best. We must still give these children, these kids, a second chance. As families, we must do the same. Don't get fed up with your child if they didn't complete matric. Not even at university do you give up on them. We have to give them a second chance, continue to support them. That's why I'm very pleased that the minister is launching this program. Minister, we know that with what you are explaining yesterday on the progressed, those who would have failed in 2014, 20 earlier in grade 11, who were moved to grade 12, even with that is a risk worth taking. Because who must take this risk? Who must worry about what? If these children are left out of school, they are thrown to the wolves. They will end up in our prisons. They'll end up breaking into our homes. They will end up hopeless. So we have to give them hope. So this program of the second chance is to give hope, in my view, is to give hope to children who can easily lose hope, because along the long journey of 13 years, 12 to 13 years, they may have faltered last year, but we mustn't give up on them. We must make sure that they continue to receive the support of our government, the support of communities, the support of families, until they too do what the others did who were given that chance, who came out tops in the results the minister announced yesterday. We could have given up on them. Some of them came up top. Some of them got distinctions. That was explained yesterday. It's an important attitude of life, never to give up on those who falter along the way. Our task is to continue to support them. So we will work with you, Minister, as Gauteng Province. Count on our support, like on every program. We will put all the resources, we'll put our energy. The MEC of Education, as you know, once we take a decision that something must be done, he applies himself. He gets the officials in the Gauteng Department of Education to apply themselves 100%. So we can then say, and next year, end of the year, the 17,000 that fell by the wayside, we've got an explanation to the nation what we have been able to do with them. And that's our responsibility as a leadership, to always give a helping hand. But I don't see learners here, but they too have a responsibility. We can't just help them and then they do nothing about it. But thank you very much, Minister, for this initiative. As I've said, we will continue to support you. And once more, I want to convey my message of congratulations and appreciation to all the teachers, the officials in our system, the parents who have done very, very well in supporting our learners. We will continue to do our part. Our job is simple: to make Gauteng the best in every area of endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the Premier of Gauteng, Tate Makura. Education has many priorities. Some people, when they criticize, they don't have a good picture of the scope and size of the system that we run. At this point, I'm going to allow the Deputy Minister of Basic Education to come forward, talk about some of the priorities, maybe also give us the scope and size of the education system in South Africa, after which we'll also introduce the Minister. Dear.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, Program Director, and good morning to all of you. Minister Angie Motshekga, our District Director, Honorable Premier from Gauteng, and ladies and gentlemen, let us congratulate Gauteng on its wonderful achievement particularly with regard to retention of 77% of its learners. I think it's quite extraordinary. It's certainly an international benchmark. We also would want to laud and applaud Gauteng for its intensive initiative on ICT. Obviously, it does create problems for the minister and the deputy minister, so when they visit rural provinces, there's a demand. We want our tablets now. But be that as it may, it's important that, that we move into the technological age. I thought what we should do before the minister addresses you on the theme of this particular event is reflect a little bit on ICT as it occurs countrywide, because we do know that the forerunners or the front runners in terms of ICT are Gauteng as well as the Western Cape, given their infrastructure and the development economically and otherwise. But ICT is not a phenomenon that occurs only in these two provinces, and it is our intention to ensure that we reach out to each and every school in the country by 2019, so that every child, be he or she in a rural school or an urban school, has access to ICT. The question then is, are we ready for the task? Yes, indeed we are. We have digitized the entire curriculum content. We have all our past papers digitized. Our annual national assessment exemplars are digitized. More than 200 books are digitized. We've launched e-libraries already in Gauteng and other provinces, and we've ensured that connectivity is made available to all our schools. And this is a progressive but an intensive exercise. The Pakisa initiative that we've developed with the presidency as well as the Treasury is an effort to ensure that ICT is something that reaches out, extends to all parts of the country, particularly our rural areas such as in Limpopo, Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. Now, you know, the importance of retention, and part of this theme here is really about opportunity, about hope, and about a systemic approach to education. Many of you, or most of you, might not be aware of the fact that when our learners, in fact, it's one of the remarkable achievements that we have, according to Statistics South Africa, 92% of all learners in South Africa have had at least 1 year of preschool learning. And that's quite a huge, huge improvement. But beyond that, there are approximately 800,000 learners in our public institutions. And every child, black or white, in a quintile 1 or quintile 5 school receives 4 books delivered to him or her. And that goes beyond grade R, from grade 1 to grade 9. More than 54 million books to promote literacy and numeracy is distributed to learners across the system, irrespective of whether the school is a quintile 5 school or quintile 1 school, with due sensitivity to language and its demands. Now, these are initiatives to ensure that we sustain the ability, particularly with regard to literacy and numeracy, in all our schools, and that's an important event. And I think what we're seeing with regard to the retention and the increased number of learners in our matric exams is a result of a sustained approach to systemic change across the system, starting from preschool and going beyond. And I think we should certainly applaud our minister for her determination, resoluteness in terms of taking that stand to say, if we're going to build schools, let it not be high schools only, let us start off with primary schools. And if you look at their CD programs, most of these state-of-the-art schools are primary schools, because that's where the foundations of learning take place, and that's where we have to make a difference. So what we have now is not only the reality that in the 21st century, ICT is integral to the progress that our learners must make, but also a very positive collaboration with the private sector. So, for example, if you have your mobile phone, it can be a smartphone or a very ordinary simple phone, you can access all past papers, the digital content, and more than 200 books through our Kufunda program, which is a collaboration exercise between the Department of Basic Education, UNICEF, as well as Mixed Outreach, which means that you can basically access almost anything. With regard to Vodacom, for example, we have a collaboration exercise, and they had basically created a platform, a digital classroom for grades 10, 11, and 12, math, science, technology, and languages, and they're going to expand to all other subjects, and now they've introduced it from grade 4 to grade 9. And the best part of it is this, that through this collaborative exercise, if you download any data which is multimedia, you do not get charged 1 cent. It is mahala, free of charge. The Department of Basic Education is busy with an education cloud which will create an infinite resource on education for each subject in each grade. And we have an arrangement with our service providers that they would basically host our clouds in there on the set, and if we download data, that would be free of charge. So what we're trying to do is basically ensure that technology is made available to all our people, to all our learners, free of charge, at no cost, and that's as a result of the collaboration that we have with these entities. Now, television and broadcasting is very, very critical, and we have a dedicated channel called the OVHD, which allows us to basically broadcast our television programs. And part of this supplementary examination opportunity would mean that we're going to utilize that resource optimally to ensure that we reach out. In the Free State and in the Western Cape and in Gauteng, they use telematics to ensure that they are able to reach out through the universities of Free State and the University of Stellenbosch to the learners and the University of Witwatersrand. And that's another resource that's available. Our website, our portal website is available. So learners are beginning to understand the value of self-regulated learning. And more importantly, ICT makes that possible, to say that you don't always require a teacher on your side. You have multimedia, multi-sensory access to data which would assist you and enable you to be able to learn and acquire quality education. So we recognize that reality. But the third element is this, that if you are going to change the pedagogy or the methodology of education, what do you do about the competency of your educators? Now, you might not know that more than 350,000 educators have been trained on ICT already in this country. Not only in Gauteng, not only in the Western Cape, but countrywide. Because we say we have to be ready for the transition into the 21st century. And more significantly, our educators have become creators of wonderful, innovative programs on education. And they've participated globally and have achieved recognition for that. So ICT is opening up wonderful opportunities and avenues. Now, to ensure that this takes place meaningfully, we've established already 147 teacher resource centers countrywide. They are all connected. They have sophisticated ICT, and teachers are able to utilize that resource to develop the capacity, enhance the ICT proficiency, and are able to better facilitate learning and teaching. It is a process. It's a difficult one, but I think collaboratively, by looking at best practices such as in Gauteng, the Western Cape and other provinces, we are able to grow as a country. The last point that I'd like to make, and again I would like to thank our Minister for doing so, is this Minister has this extraordinary ability to recognize challenges, to admit where there are difficulties, and to say, what is the solution to it? Now, we know that all our learners in our schools do not want to pursue an academic career. In other words, don't want to go to university or technology. We know many of them want to pursue technical skills. And this country desperately needs intermediate technological skills. We have 1,037 technical schools. And this year, for the first time, we are launching a career path for civil technology, mechanical technology, and electronic technology in our schools, which means that you would be able to do a technical mathematics and a technical science in a technical school if you do not want to pursue an academic stream, and it would have the same value and parity with your academic stream in order to enhance those particular skill sets that this country desperately requires. And again, that's a new initiative which will contribute to two things, and that's what's the purpose out here. One is that children are not forced or compelled to go into the academic stream. Secondly, we would be able to retain our learners in schools, and we've recapitalized these technical schools. Thirdly, we would ensure that we create opportunity. The issue of what the Minister did, and that's again a bold and audacious step on her part, and we thank her for that, is to say progressive learners have the ability and the potential, and given the support, they can make a difference. She reflected yesterday on how the Northwest was able to assist these progressive learners to the extent that 59% of them were able to achieve a matric pass. Now, if we take that seriously, it means that we would be able to curb the dropout because we are able to provide the support. It also means that we are sending a clear signal to all our schools and all our provinces and all our districts that we are not going to accommodate culling, that you not keep a child back simply because you want improved results in your matric. We'd rather compromise or sacrifice 5% of our results and provide better and broader access to our learners. So for these wonderful interventions, we certainly want to say to the Minister, thank you very, very much, Minister, for your incredible leadership. I think education is in good hands, not only within the National Department, but amongst our provincial departments. And Premier, I certainly want to say to you, I am aware of your enormous support to education in Gauteng. You've been a wonderful supporter of education, and indeed, we must say thank you to you. Panyaza is one of ours. He was with the Department of Basic Education and very, very proud to see him lead education, and he's done an extremely good job here. But it's all the heads of department, all the officials, and most importantly, the dedicated, hard-working teachers whom we often fail to recognize. Those difficulties this school year has more than 1,950 learners. More than 1,950 learners. You have a very capable professional leader, two deputy principals, senior management, dedicated educators, which makes this environment a difficult environment to teach in, but which has made a huge difference to this community. Now, like this school, there are thousands of schools. Go to Denbro, go to Mbilwe, where our schools, no-fee schools, are producing excellent results as a result of commitment and a huge contribution by our educators. So this is our opportunity to say thank you to our educators and thank you to the parents. And lastly, before I call the Minister to address us on this important theme, all our learners are collecting the reports. We say well done to those who have achieved. Thank you very much for your hard work. And to those who have not achieved, please listen attentively to the Minister. She has some very, very good news to you. Kia leboha, thank you very much.
No, Program Director, let me acknowledge the Deputy Minister who just spoke to you, but also acknowledge with respect the Premier of the province, Tate Makura, acknowledge senior officials from the department, both in the province and nationally. I see you're quite right, Premier, there's no nepotism that I come and launch at home. It has nothing to do with it being a home a province. It's accidental that I stayed Midrand and launched in Midrand. It's just accidental. But let me acknowledge all the councillors I see here, the leadership of the area, the school principals that are here. Thank you very much for being here. The SGB, we were welcomed by the chairperson, the SGB in the area. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you very much again for joining us this morning. Premier, I must say I'm extremely relieved that we are at this point with this second chance program. And this is the first phase that we're going to be talking about, so I hope our officials are listening. We have to take this program further because we need it as a sector. We don't have much time to explain to you some of the challenges that are here in the sector, but one of the correct concern that has been raised, especially by your researchers and academics, is that our system also tends to be very inefficient. Our system is used to dealing with educational problems by failing learners. And I think we're used to it. When we were briefing the president on matric results, one of the questions that the team asked us was, what's wrong with the learners failing once, so why do you progress them? And I think that's the cycle, and we're used to it as South Africans, that we deal with academic problems by failing, which is a problem. Because internationally, Premier, the repetition rate is 1%. Only 1% of learners in developed countries repeat grades. In SADC, the repetition rate is 5%, which is huge. But in our country, it's 10%, which means every year, more than 1 million learners fail a grade. And if you cost it financially and in terms of the lives of children, it's very expensive. Because it means if we subsidize the minimum of 10,000 per learner, so which means a year we lose more than 120 million just by kids repeating grades. It's a very expensive and a very inefficient system. But that's not even enough. We discourage them. As a result, most of them run away from the system. So we would have paid so much for a child to go up to grade 10 as the state subsidize, and when they're supposed to finish, then they drop out and they leave the system without any evidence of having been in the system. And it creates lots of social problems. We crush them. And I always said, I imagine being a mother and have a 16-year-old who won't go to school because they are discouraged. They've failed twice. They don't feel motivated to go to school. And I have to leave them in the house every day. So there's a pressure at home, and the school will say, you're overaged, you can't come. And you can imagine what will happen to those children. And this program, in the long term, is really meant to provide that cushion to say, let's support our learners. And I can give you lots of examples before I even get to the speech, Premier, where you get young people also saying, hey, here's my old lady. Hey, here's my old lady or my crazy man. I want to go back to school. And said, I'm so good. I can't so good. Zabuya kanjani esikolweni. Sizowenzani ngawo ba so good nasifunza good esikolweni. But the fact of the matter, they deserve the second chance because they faltered, sometimes not because of problems of their making. It's part of growing and things happen in between. And we just think in the long term, we also have to find a way of bring back in good to see second chance food, but not a child in a school. And it must a child in a school. So, Program Director, let me take this opportunity to really appreciate and acknowledge the hard work done by all stakeholders and our partners in education who help to contribute towards a meaningful and quality education in the sector. But in particular, I really want to thank teachers for their unrelenting effort and sacrifice to better the lives of our learners. Most of us don't know the sacrifices that our teachers have to go through, sometimes even to make up for the deficits that we have in the system. Premier, I know of schools, even in your province, where teachers even spend overnight running camps at their own homes, sometimes in schools, to support learners who don't have proper learning spaces at home. It's a huge sacrifice. They leave their homes of comfort to come and really go out of the way. I know of principals who take kids and run camps in their own garages at their own expense. Buy them Oros, tin of peanut butter and bread and get them to. So there are huge sacrifices that our teachers do to take us to where we are. And for that, we really have to say we're very grateful. And we'd like to, and also like as a department to re-emphasize our commitment as a department to the continuous professional development of our teachers, because our system stands and falls on teachers. Unless you can have anything else, or you can lose everything else, but not have a good teacher in front of a class. You rather study under a tree or anywhere, but with a good teacher, you have a winning formula. So yesterday, as we announced the NSC results of class 2015, there's one learner whose story is a blueprint of achieving greater heights against all odds. Our overall top achiever was Andrew Tucker from the Western Cape. He's an epitome to say never die attitude. This young man had a very sad story, but ended up with a happy ending because he was a top learner. He did 7 subjects and got 7 distinctions. And other subjects, he got full marks. Andrew this year, in February, was diagnosed with a Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's a very debilitating disorder where the immune system itself attacks the peripheral nervous system. And as we are told, it's a debilitating system, a disease which can be fatal. And there's no known cure for it, and there's also doctors don't know what causes it. But his principal and his parents told us that he was bedridden for 5 months in 2015, and only returned to school full-time only in the 3rd term in July. However, upon his return, he refused to be treated differently. Instead, he showed so much courage that pulled the entire school together and inspired everybody else to work hard. And as I say, he ended up being the top national achiever of 2015, only attending school from July. And as I said, we really continue to thank him and all those young, brave people who can tell you stories of young, brave people who, against real odds, inspire and motivate everybody to be the best that they could be, and Andrew is one of them. So, Program Director, we're proud as a sector that we've made great strides in providing basic education in our country since the dawn of democracy, but we also acknowledge that major challenges continue facing the education sector, and amongst them is a high dropout rate in the system. And according to the NDP, South Africa loses half of every cohort that enters the school system by the end of 12 years. And I'm very proud, Premier, if you say in our province you have tracked our learners, you're at 78%, which is international standard. No country has 100% that you enter one, you end up, some people die in the process again. So, 1 plus 1, and then life doesn't work like that. Right? Because even internationally, secondary completion rates, for instance, in the United States stand at 77% premium. So you're even above the United States. In UK, it's 93%, or it's 87% in UK, it's 93% in Japan, and in South Africa, we really are striving to get 80 to 90%. And part of this program is to address this high dropout rate, to say if learners falter, let's find a way of ensuring that they complete their schooling. So according to South Africa, young people constitute 41.2% of the country's population. You saw them when they did Fees Must Fall to say, hey, this is a tide most. These people are many. And so we have to look after them to say, this is the nation. So they are in the majority. But our research points to a number of reasons for some of the problems that we have, mostly are socio-economic and social ills. And we learned a lot, Premier, with progress learners, because what your province in particular did, it profiled them to say, who are these learners who are stuck in the system? I told they are overaged in the system. Others, for instance, have been repeating almost every phase. And we picked up lots of ills that we have to begin to confront, not only ourselves as a sector, but as a nation. And that's why we're making these public pronouncements. Some is dysfunction, as I say, some are social ills, some are socio-economic factors that we are beginning to confront and address. And outcomes in our education system clearly points to concerns about poverty and vulnerability and antisocial and risky behaviors as major contributors to poor learner performance and exclusion from education. And that's what we also picked up during the profiling of our progress learners. And these vulnerabilities include, amongst others, your teenage pregnancy, that's why we speak about second chance, your low levels of literacy and numeracy, that kids go from phase to phase with deficits, which then finally catch up with them when they are in higher grades, high learner dropout, drugs and substance abuse, increase in school violence, pervasive gender-based violence, gangsterism in our schools, bullying, the impacts of HIV and AIDS, obesity amongst our learners, and the breakdown in just the family structure would support our learners. And these are the things that affect us as a sector, which we have to deal with if we have to deal with some of the ills that continue to hamper our education system. And it is these dire statistics and realities that have galvanized us as a sector into action to launch the Second Chance Matric program. And the overarching objective of this program is to offer young people who have failed to meet the requirements as the first phase of the NEC a second chance to obtain a matric, thereby improving their quality of life. So it's phase one, we're starting with NEC, but in the long term, it's to even support kids who are in the system so that they don't fall victims of these programs. But also, second chance into the system. So the program is intended to provide support to learners who have not been able to meet the requirement of the National Senior Certificate and thereby meeting the goals of the National Development Plan by increasing learner retention. So this program is to again assist us with high dropout rates, high repetition rates, and help us to retain our learners in the system so they at least live with a qualification. So the categories of learners who will be covered are those learners who qualify to write supplementary exams, because again we've realized that learners who have a second chance to improve their matric, who can write the 2 supplementary exams, don't pass well because they are not supported to prepare for the supplementary exams. So we also want to support those learners who qualify for supplementary exams. Progress learners, because you'll be surprised why yesterday we spoke about progress learners. We knew what was coming. We had taken, as I said, Premier, we beat the bullet. We took the chance to take them forward, but we didn't want to leave them high and dry to say, go and take your chances, do work hard, and still not support them. So we want to continue supporting them. We've supported them a lot during the year. Some we had advised to modularize. Some have not passed of those progress learners. We want to continue to support them again to make sure that finally those that have the potential to pass and succeed, they succeed. And in the long term is to really help young South Africans who don't have a qualification, at least a matric qualification, at least have a passion. We want to say to our kids, if you didn't have your chance, here's a second chance, just get your paper. So National Senior Certificate Learner Retention Program, the Second Chance Program, is meant to provide support to candidates writing the supplementary exams, those who modularize, those progress learners that we had advised not to write the entire exam, who have an option to write in February and March and June respectively. So we're even encouraging them to say, if you think March is too close, write in June, so that we can work with you. So the planning phase of the program, it entails support for candidates who did not meet the requirements of the National Senior Certificate post-2008 is yet to be conducted. So we're only on phase 1. And as I said, phase 2, phase 3 is meant, as I say, phase 3 is really meant to give young people a second chance to obtain a qualification. And through the upscaling of such second chance program, young South Africans will be integrated back into the education system, not schools. So, counseling I think to apply. It's in the system, not in the schools, to ensure that they receive a second chance at being adequately qualified before entering the job market. Local research suggests that 8% of those with matric as their highest qualification are employed, while 54% of those without matric are not employable. Thus, the higher your qualifications, the less likely you are to be unemployed. In fact, there are more benefits to the country at large to have its citizens adequately educated, because education contributes to improving child survival and maternal health. It's enlightened parents who will take their kids for immunization. So it does even improve maternal health in many ways. So there are more benefits than even individual benefits that we have. Educated mothers are also 50% more likely than mothers with no schooling to immunize their children against diseases, encourage their kids to go to school and support them. So education contributes to the fight against HIV and AIDS. A report by the Global Campaign for Education assessed that educated people are normally healthier people And infection rates on HIV and AIDS are halved among young people who finish school. Thus, if every child receives or complete primary school, at least 7 million new cases of HIVs could be prevented during the course of a decade. And we are doing this because we believe that education helps to fight poverty and spur economic growth. It's a prerequisite for tackling poverty and promoting short and long-term economic growth. And no country that we know of has achieved continuous rapid economic growth without at least 40% of its adults being able to read and write. So again, if you really have to take our economy forward, we have to fight hard to make sure that our people are literate and can look after themselves. So the scope of the project. The first phase of the project will focus on learners who qualify to write supplementary exams. Because as I say, throughout all the years, we get 30% from supplementary exams, which is very low for people who are only writing 2 subjects, or 1 subject. And we think we can improve our stakes there, and it will improve the number. So it will even reduce the number, that 170,000 premier that would not have succeeded if we can give them support. Because those are almost there. It's only 2 subjects, and if they get support, they're likely to pass. The first phase of the program, which we're launching today, is going to look at progress learners sitting for the modularized writing options. Because we did encourage other progress learners to say, hey, we are syndrome, tata half-half. So those learners we want to support further, so those are learners that are going to qualify, but even learners that fail to meet the NSC requirement, which will be planned for 2016 and rolled out in 2017. So those are the ones that fell by the wayside to say, let's talk, but we're going to only plan for that group this year. So for now, we're only able to deal with supplementary and the progress learners, and those that Lababoma already will roll out their program in 2017. So in terms of the regulations pertaining to the conduct and administration and management of national certificates, the following candidates, I think that the recommends saying I'm making laws for myself, whereas is a qualifying authority. Since we're still dealing with Matata's town, we'll come and pay our dues to Umalusi. So the following candidates will be allowed to write supplementary exams. A candidate who has not met the minimum promotion and certification requirements and require a maximum of 2 subjects to obtain the National Senior Certificate. So all those that qualify to write supplementary exams will be part of this program. A candidate who's medically unfit, as a result, was absent from 1 or more external exams. We're discussing with the principal that some learners were unable to finish their exams for different reasons, either bereavement or any trauma in the family, including death. A candidate who does not satisfy the minimum higher education requirements and higher education faculty requirements. In such cases, the candidate must be 1 requirement short. You find that the child wants to go into medicine, he's got a D, they want a C, so you can come and rewrite. And a candidate who provides documentary evidence that he or she is being considered for an occupation but is 1 requirement short for the specific occupation, and the candidate who has a death in the immediate family or other for special reasons for the candidate's absence. And the other important prescripts relating to writing of the supplementary exams are the following: must be a school-based assessment. In a case where an irregularity is being investigated, provisional enrollment for supplementary exams may be granted to the candidate concerned. You remember last year, the group of learners whose schools were affected by group copying, and we had withheld their results. We allowed them to re-register for supplementary. This year we also heard there are also such learners who are affected in whose schools were investigating. A candidate who did not write or complete the end of year exam. And we can say who are the profile of these learners that we are giving the second chance. It will be adult learners. at least they are qualified. Employed learners, because the system is meant also saying, in case you're employed, you want to improve your qualification, you can also register. If you are unemployed, you can also register. You have time constraints, looking after a baby, teenage pregnant mothers really have responsibilities, but you also don't want them to neglect the young children. A person is unavailable during schooling hours. To be very ideal if you have access to internet, but because we are working very close with Vodacom through their Vodacom schooling, it's going to be quite easier because it's free access also to the cloud. Children who have no parental support, these children-headed households find that that's really difficult to cope. And learners who require advice on career pathing. And how are we going to deal with it? The curriculum delivery and support strategy. So will support will be provided to supplementary learners, the ones that have through a face-to-face tuition by grade 12 teachers from best performing schools. So those are learners who have to write in March, who really need 2 subjects. Unlike what we always did in the past, we leave them to their own means. We are saying we will assist them this year, we'll support them because we want them to pass. We normally get a pass rate of 30% from supplementary exams. We want to up the stake and get more of them passing. So we want to support them. We've got very great partners, multimedia broadcasting solutions from existing telematic centers in the province. We have your mindset, you have SABC education. We're structuring them quite properly to make sure that they can access our learners. There are Vodacom centers in every province. As I said, Vodacom has what we call the Vodacom school. You can attend the best school, I think, get straight A's from that school if you do exactly what that school says. You even get better support because it saves time. I can imagine if you are a child who's homeschooling, because the parents can even track if it's been on the internet, can track if they're making progress, can see if there are difficulties, and rather than a child washing, going to a taxi and other things, they can even start their schooling at 7. By 2 o'clock, they've had 8 hours of schooling because there is teaching in those Vodacom centers. Learners who have access, learners will also be given access to Mindsend content, which is also very good content, and broadcasting stations which exclusive to us as DBE of open view. So we'll provide decoders and satellite dishes to pilot schools. So there'll be specific schools in different provinces that will give decoders and dishes to enable them to access broadcasted lessons. There'll be supervised study time at schools, at teacher centers, and at Vodacom centers. We have established a Facebook with DBE and Provincial Education Department specialists for learners to pose questions and receive support. And learners will be provided with support material and Mind the Gap series. It's a very beautiful program. Those are very nice series because they identify areas of common weaknesses that learners normally tend to fault around. So we call it Mind the Gap because there are always consistent gaps that our learners fall into the traps. And our officials in the department have developed these beautiful materials, and we do want to promote their usage because we find them extremely useful. During the marking, I did visit one of the centers at Pretoria Girls High. That's how I went back to your daughter's old school and looked through the scripts. It's quite clear that there are still huge gaps, that our kids, same mistakes which they constantly do. They don't read questions properly. They miss it. If you say describe, they explain, they analyze, just to really help them to say, these are different principles that we're saying. If you say relate, it's different from analyzing, or it's very different from, so they'll tell a story. But what was said also, dear, was that when I also looked at some of the scripts, which I suspect I have no evidence because we don't red mark progress learners. There are learners who had not even seen, I mean, one of the batch I was looking at was a batch on first language literature. Honestly, grade 12, you must be able to read Setswana. I mean, these kids, some of them are scoring 5 out of 120. So it's quite clear this child has not seen the book. The teacher is just being polite to give them the 5 because they attended, they spent time. So it's to really appreciate the fact that they came and sat for the exam and give them the 5 out of 120. But basically, we should have given them, if it was maths, we'll give them a clear 0. So we'll be providing CDs to each learning site with previous examination question papers and exemplars and memorandum, and Mind the Gap series, as well as all other content materials that are available. We'll also teach our learners how to interpret and answer questions. They'll be assisted with registering at the nearest examination center. We'll give them exam tips and motivate them. It's quite clear with progress learners, with support, with motivation. Some of them, as I said, got distinctions. 40 of them got distinctions in maths. And these are learners who were not supposed to have written in 2015. So with support, with motivation, it means some learners can make it. So it's also to really use that experience we've gained from progressed learners to say, you can give people a second chance if you motivate them, if you support them, and if you really give them hope. They're able to be inspired. And we also hope to do that also on an ongoing basis. And support will be revision-based and focus on diagnostic reports and subject reports. Right? As I say, when I looked at the scripts, I knew exactly, Don, what we need to do when we go to our schools. I was even asking the exams people to say, what do we do with the reports from marking? Because those reports from marking can clearly inform schools on where the problems are, what are the things we're not doing right. And using that information, that wealth of information from exam scripts, there's much more we can do in guiding our learners on how to perform. But Premier was told in Gauteng that they have a very comprehensive program led by Don as the head of curriculum on really how to deal with findings of exams. So thank you very much. But we'll also support will be aligned to the timetable and be provided until the day before the last paper offered in the pilot. So in conclusion, Program Director, we believe that the success of this program will be made possible by a variety of stakeholders. But for now, we want to give our gratitude to provinces, because they're the ones who really have to do the work. To our Quality Assurance Authority, to SAQA, they've been very helpful. To Umalusi, the comments, I know he really reprimanded us a lot, but they also assisted us to align with some of the things we did it from the heart, and they said, you don't do things that way. You have to do things properly, and we really appreciate the guidance and the support from Umalusi and the support from SAQA. Department of Higher Education has also been very helpful in this program. The NYDA also has played a major role, because that's a concern also about supporting and working with young people. We are very grateful to the NYDA also for coming and being partners with us. We've brought in the different SETAs, the EDTP SETA. Teach South Africa, for instance, has also been very helpful, because it really helps us to mobilize professional, qualified South Africans who are not necessarily in the system. It will be your accountants who come to our schools and help kids with accounting or even with mathematics. It will be your engineers are mobilized from outside. They come into the system and help kids with skills. So we are really grateful to even have partners like them. Mindset, for instance, University of Stellenbosch also has been very critical and very helpful. It's worked very well over a long period with the Western Cape and the Free State, and it is joining us also in this program, and the Department of Communications are partners. But more important also, as I said, what we saw working with progress learners was support from parents. Because one of the conditions we said to parents, your child has failed. Technically, you are supposed to keep this child in grade 11 or kick this child out because they are overaged. But let's agree. Do your part, we'll do our part. You supervise the learner, make sure they do their homework, come and look after them. Because when we leave, our teachers have to go and look after their own children. You come and look after your child and other mothers. and come and look at, monitor the afternoon classes and the morning classes and the Saturday classes. So we really again appeal to committees to say, let's all do our little bit in our little corners, and I think if we all do our bit, it will work. So we are really appealing to the community of South Africans to say, let's give our children the second chance. We need to have it done. They need it, and the country needs them to have the necessary skills. And on that note, let me thank you again, Premier, for really honoring us with your presence. I know you have time pressures. You have to go and sort out things in the province. Thank the DG, but the principal, I'm always proud of. I just happen to stay around this area, but principals in this area, they make us proud and encourage us. So thank you very much, yourself and all your other colleagues who are principals in the Ivory Park area. I ask anybody I boast, I say, "Namo ki tlanteng, basadi ba teng, ba pingala phezulu." So thank you very much, principal. And the teachers, thank you very much, Ke leboha thata. And the councillors, thank you very much with your presence. So I know, so you know what to do again. So skera di kono robo sorry, bana ba ba kai arsa bua sorry, kitse fin di windows robeli di toilet. We'll deal with those. The toilets will deal with those as a sector. Let's deal with supporting our learners to succeed. That's what we want you to do and help us with. And thank you very much. And thanks the media really for the support. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the Minister for that elaborate speech. We'll certainly be taking the communication forward as far as this initiative is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost at the end of the program, but before we conclude, before I call Mr. Ndevu to give us a vote of thanks, we'd like to request the driver of a vehicle, Toyota WYF 073GP, to please move it, because it is blocking the Premier's vehicle, which will be leaving in the next 2 minutes. So please rush there, please remove it, and make sure that there are no cars in front of the Premier security detail. At this point, I'm going to request the District Director, Mr. Ndevu, to come give us a vote of thanks.
Well, sorry for the intervention. You know, as things happen, I thought it's important, the Minister and I have agreed that we have to recognize the important role played by governing body associations in the achievement of results. To the teacher unions, who have also contributed very meaningfully to the success that we've achieved, as well as student organizations such as COSAS. So the oversight and omission is regretted, but please, we do recognize your enormous contribution. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Program Director, Minister for Basic Education, Deputy Minister, Premier, you have been here in the area for almost 4 times in less than 2 months. You have been with us. You have been part of the Education Department in this district. It then challenges principals of Ivory Park. Ndade Josh, this is a challenge. I don't want 80%, no child must fail. Hashtag no child must fail. All children must pass. I don't have a percentage. I'm saying it to the minister. What happens if you are told that your child is going to fail and we boast about 99% pass rate except your child? I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank the principal, the SGB chairperson, and the committee. Umbuto is bonda as corner. Ndokano digane masiyekhaya amadoda ngathi wile. Kuthiwa Eastern Cape number last. ikhaya lika Oliver Tambo hayi kuqhuba inkunzi zegusha phaya make siye ekhaya kubi minister yakhala MEC in absentia tata mkoni tata mkoni tata ICT is here to stay ngebhadi ke bafethu ingxaki esizaba nayo izawugcwala lapha Eastern Cape igcwala lapha Limpopo singabi na space malungelo boy ungazonibuza imibuzo ke kuba kuzabe kugcwele beze kwi-ICT kaMkoni it just says minister you've got an activist premier you don't have an MEC. He has been all over, and correctly so, you are right. The car was moving at 120, but the tires were changed. And critics were watching very carefully. Minister, in 1964, when I was doing Standard 4, progression is engaged. Winston not dealinga wanyuselwa kuba wayebhesa wayecula kwangekho malusi la wathi nje umem because uyacula wamnyusela wamsa ku standard 5 so ungothuki mama akwenzanga into embi i-progressed learners zazikhona ku-Fairwood ngebhadi ke ngo-1966 masenza u6 wafa wasweleka bayaswela so uthembele ukuthi sikhona ungakothuka akho nto embi yenzileyo abanye bethu minister abapasa mpasa umatric sesinabantwana abafunda safunda umatric nabo so ayikhontsha lento wenza into enhle yiyo lento sime apha sizi directors today so we are very grateful for giving this chance to the children. We want to say, for those who do not want to join us, there's a man who once said, we're at a point where we're decorating our table in a true African style. And for those who do not want, all those who want to join us, you'll join us in our own terms. And if you don't, it's your problem. And I think this is what we are saying. We're moving forward, we're not changing. Critics were talking about quantity education for many years. Now, when the Minister of Education decides to turn the corner to go to quality, they are going back to talk about quantity. If you look at the results as they were pronounced, the minister was very clear talking about quality results. And this is what we are talking about. So we want to promise you in front of everybody to say, we are with you, we are going to make sure that quality results are there. During our time, well, it's bachelors now, Minister Medina, during our time, it was a first class and a second class and a third class. Now it's bachelors. But we'll make sure as a district, as well as a department, to support the MEC, to support the national education. We want to thank everybody. We want to thank the children. Those children who come from very unfortunate circumstances. In fact, hands up those who come from fortunate circumstances here. Mabaphakamisa izandla abafundileyo abavela kwizindlu ezirich. Sonke sibuya kwizindlu eziphuwa. But we made sure it then shows that the minister understands the value of education, that education has to change the lifestyle of human beings, and particularly us blacks and Africans. So we want to thank everybody. We want to thank you, Minister, and your team, and your wonderful team in making this presentation and taking step by step us to freedom. We are going to freedom. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Breakfast is served. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ndev. We've come to the end of today's program. Some of us will be going to Rhema Bible Church, where the Gauteng Education Department will be making the announcement for the province NSC results. But as Mr. Ndevu said, there's breakfast at the back, and the Premier will now be leaving. And we understand that there are requests for interviews as well, while the Minister is still around. That will be available for members of the media, but for everyone else, it's breakfast, which is going to be the focus now of our attention. Thank you very much.
All day long he was fighting for you, and he didn't even know your name. Young and calm